The rain poured down like liquid silver across the Manhattan streets, turning the evening into a symphony of splashing puddles and rushing umbrellas. Celeste Rivers clutched her art portfolio tighter against her chest as she hurried down Fifth Avenue, her worn canvas shoes splashing through shallow streams of water. The gallery opening she had just attended hadn't gone as planned. Another rejection, another polite smile followed by those crushing words that every struggling artist knew by heart. She was so lost in her disappointment that she didn't see the figure emerging from the sleek black sedan until it was too late. The collision sent her portfolio flying, dozens of her carefully crafted paintings scattering across the wet pavement like fallen dreams. Celeste gasped as strong arms caught her before she could hit the ground, steadying her against a solid chest that smelled of expensive cologne and rain-soaked wool. "I'm so sorry," a deep voice rumbled above her head. "I didn't see you there." Celeste looked up and felt her breath catch. The man holding her was devastatingly handsome, with dark hair slicked back from the rain, and eyes the color of stormy seas. His suit probably cost more than she made in 6 months, and everything about him screamed wealth and power. She quickly stepped back, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "My paintings," she whispered, watching helplessly as the rain began to blur the watercolors she had spent weeks perfecting. Without hesitation, the stranger dropped to his knees on the wet concrete, gathering her artwork with surprising care. His expensive suit was getting ruined, but he didn't seem to notice. Celeste knelt beside him, trying to save what she could, tears mixing with the rain on her face. "These are beautiful," he said softly, studying a portrait of a little girl with sad eyes. "You're incredibly talented." Celeste felt a flutter in her chest at the genuine admiration in his voice. Most people barely glanced at her work before dismissing it. "They're probably ruined now," she said, her voice barely audible over the rain. "Not all of them." He stood, extending his hand to help her up. "I'm Damien Cross." She took his hand, feeling a jolt of electricity at the contact. "Celeste Rivers." "Celeste," he repeated, and the way he said her name made her shiver. "Like celestial. It suits you." They stood there in the rain, hands still connected, and Celeste felt something shift in the air between them. This wasn't just a chance encounter. This felt like destiny. "You're soaked," Damien said, finally releasing her hand. "There's a cafe just around the corner. Let me buy you something warm to drink." "It's the least I can do after destroying your artwork." Celeste hesitated. Every instinct told her that this man was dangerous, not in a physical way, but in the way he made her heart race with just a look. She had always been careful, always played it safe, but something about the warmth in his eyes made her want to take a risk for once in her life. "Okay," she whispered. The cafe was small and intimate, with soft jazz playing in the background and the smell of fresh coffee beans filling the air. Damien guided her to a corner table, his hand gentle on the small of her back. As they sat across from each other, Celeste became acutely aware of how different they were. His watch probably cost more than her rent, while she was wearing a dress she had bought at a thrift store. "Tell me about your art," Damien said, leaning forward with genuine interest. Celeste wrapped her hands around her steaming mug of hot chocolate, gathering her courage. "I paint people," she said quietly. "Their emotions, their stories. I try to capture the parts of themselves they think no one else can see." "And what do you see when you look at me?" The question was asked casually, but there was an intensity in his gaze that made her pulse quicken. Celeste studied his face, taking in the sharp jawline, the way his eyes seemed to hold secrets, the slight tension in his shoulders that spoke of burdens carried alone. "Loneliness," she said finally, "and hunger." "Hunger?" His voice was rougher now. "Not for food," she clarified, her cheeks warming. "For something real, something that matters." The silence stretched between them, charged with an electricity that made the air feel thick. Damien's eyes never left her face, and Celeste felt as though he was seeing straight into her soul. "You're right," he said finally. "I am hungry. Starving, actually." Dangerous attraction. The conversation flowed between them like wine, smooth and intoxicating. Celeste found herself opening up to this mysterious stranger in ways she never had before. She told him about growing up in foster care, about using art as an escape from a world that often felt cold and unwelcoming. She spoke of her dreams to one day have her own gallery, to create art that would touch people's hearts and remind them they weren't alone. Damien listened with an intensity that made her feel like the most important person in the world. When she asked about his life, he was more guarded, speaking in general terms about business and travel. But she caught glimpses of something deeper in his eyes, moments when his carefully constructed walls seemed to crack. "I should probably go," Celeste said reluctantly as the caf began to empty around them. Hours had passed without her noticing, and the rain had finally stopped. "I'll drive you," Damien offered immediately. "You don't have to do that. I can take the subway." "At this hour?" "Absolutely not." His tone brooked no argument, and something warm unfurled in Celeste's chest at his protectiveness. His car was exactly what she had expected. Sleek and expensive, with leather seats that probably cost more than her entire apartment's furniture combined. As they drove through the city streets, Celeste stole glances at his profile, memorizing the strong line of his jaw and the way his hands gripped the steering wheel. "This is me," she said when they pulled up in front of her building. It was a far cry from the luxury he was obviously used to, with its cracked steps and flickering streetlight. Damien studied the building with a frown. "This neighborhood isn't safe. It's what I can afford," Celeste said defensively, reaching for the door handle. His hand caught hers, stopping her. "I didn't mean to offend you. I just worry. You don't even know me." "I know enough." His thumb traced over her knuckles, sending shivers up her arm. "I know you're talented and kind and brave enough to chase your dreams, even when the world keeps telling you no. I know you see people for who they really are, what they pretend to be." Celeste's breath caught. "Damien, have dinner with me tomorrow night," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Please." Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was a bad idea. Men like Damien Cross didn't date women like her. This was probably just entertainment for him, a temporary diversion from his real life. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something that made her throw caution to the wind. "Yes," she whispered. The smile that spread across his face was worth every moment of doubt she had felt. He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her palm that made her toes curl. "Until tomorrow," he murmured. Celeste floated up to her tiny apartment, her heart racing with possibilities. She had no idea what she was getting herself into, but for the first time in her life, she didn't care about playing it safe. The next evening, Damien arrived precisely on time, looking devastatingly handsome in a dark suit that emphasized his broad shoulders. The restaurant he took her to was the kind of place she had only seen in movies, with crystal chandeliers and tables set with more silverware than she knew how to use. "This is too much," she whispered, as the maitre d' led them to a private table overlooking the city. "Nothing is too much for you," Damien replied, pulling out her chair with old-fashioned gallantry. As they talked over dinner, Celeste began to piece together clues about who he really was. The way the staff treated him with deference, the expensive watch he wore so casually, the way he spoke about business deals worth millions. When she finally worked up the courage to ask directly, he set down his wineglass and met her gaze. "I own Cross Industries," he said simply. Celeste's fork clattered to her plate. Cross Industries was one of the largest conglomerates in the country, with interests in everything from technology to real estate. She had seen Damien's face on magazine covers, though she had never paid attention to the names. "You're a billionaire," she breathed. "Does that change anything between us?" The vulnerability in his question caught her off guard. Here was one of the most powerful men in the world, and he was looking at her like his entire future hung on her answer. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Our worlds are so different." "Not here," he said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "Not when it's just us." The touch of his hand sent fire racing through her veins, and Celeste felt her resolve crumbling. She had spent her whole life being practical, being careful, but this man made her want to be reckless. "Come home with me," Damien said, his voice rough with desire. "Let me show you how I really feel." Celeste's heart pounded as she nodded, beyond words. The drive to his penthouse was silent, but charged with tension. Every red light felt like an eternity. every glance between them full of promise. His apartment was everything she had imagined and more. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city, and everything was decorated with impeccable taste. But Celeste barely noticed the luxury, because all her attention was focused on the man beside her. "Are you sure about this?" Damien asked, cupping her face gently in his hands. Instead of answering with words, Celeste rose on her tiptoes and kissed him. The moment their lips met, something ignited between them. Years of loneliness and longing poured into that kiss, and when they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Damien's hands tangled in her hair as he kissed her neck, finding the sensitive spot that made her gasp. "You're so beautiful," he murmured against her skin. "I've never wanted anyone the way I want you." Celeste's hands fumbled with the buttons of his shirt, desperate to feel his skin against hers. When he lifted her in his arms and carried her to his bedroom, she felt like she was living in a dream. The moonlight streaming through the windows bathed them in silver as they slowly undressed each other, taking time to explore and worship. Damien's touch was reverent, as though she was made of precious porcelain. When he finally claimed her completely, they moved together with a passion that shook them both to their cores. "I love you," Damien whispered against her lips as they lay entwined afterward, their hearts still racing. The words should have terrified her, but instead they filled her with a joy so intense it brought tears to her eyes. "I love you too," she whispered back. As dawn broke over the city, they talked about their dreams and fears, sharing secrets they had never told another soul. Damien spoke of his lonely childhood, of parents who cared more about appearances than love. Celeste told him about her deepest insecurities, her fear that she would never be good enough for someone like him. "You're everything I've been searching for," Damien said, pulling her closer. "You see, the real me, not just the money and power. You make me want to be better." 3 months later, Damien surprised Celeste by converting an entire floor of one of his buildings into an art gallery showcasing her work. The opening night was a huge success, with collectors and critics praising her unique vision and emotional depth. "How did you know they would love my art?" Celeste asked as they danced at the after-party. "Because I see what you create when you look at the world," Damien replied, spinning her around. "You capture the beauty in broken things, the hope in darkness. You help people remember what it feels like to be human." As they swayed together on the dance floor, surrounded by her paintings and the people who now recognized her talent, Celeste realized that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with an accident. A collision in the rain, a moment of vulnerability, a willingness to see beyond the surface to the heart beneath. "Marry me," Damien whispered in her ear as the music swelled around them. "Yes," she breathed, not needing to think twice. Their love had been born from a chance encounter, but it had grown into something real and lasting. In each other, they had found not just passion, but partnership. Not just desire, but devotion. And as they kissed under the gallery lights, surrounded by the art that had brought them together, they knew their story was just beginning. True love sees beyond material differences and social boundaries to touch the depths of the human heart. Damien and Celeste's story teaches us that genuine connection happens when two souls recognize each other's authentic selves, regardless of wealth or status. Their chance encounter in the rain reminds us that life's most beautiful moments often come disguised as accidents or mistakes. The moral reveals that vulnerability is not weakness, but courage. Both characters had to risk their hearts to find love. Celeste overcame her fear of not being worthy enough, while Damien learned to value emotional wealth over material possessions. Their journey shows that real intimacy requires seeing and accepting someone completely, including their fears and imperfections. Another powerful lesson lies in how love transforms us. Damien discovered that true fulfillment comes from lifting others up, not just accumulating wealth. His support of Celeste's art gallery demonstrates that love multiplies when shared. Meanwhile, Celeste learned to value herself and embrace her talents, showing that healthy love builds confidence rather than dependence. The story also emphasizes that timing matters less than authenticity. Their whirlwind romance succeeded because both were ready to be honest about their feelings and needs. They didn't play games or hide behind pretenses. proving that genuine communication creates lasting bonds. Most importantly, their love story illustrates that everyone deserves to be seen, valued, and cherished for who they truly are. Money cannot buy authentic connection, but kindness, understanding, and mutual respect can build relationships that transform lives. Sometimes the universe conspires to bring two hearts together through unexpected circumstances, reminding us to stay open to love's possibilities even in life's storms. True love awakens our best selves and creates beauty that enriches not just two lives, but everyone they touch.